Welcome back to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. I'm Aaron Richmond. As always, this episode, just like any other, is copywritten by me, Aaron Richmond, and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you. This podcast can be heard almost anywhere you would get a podcast, from iTunes to anywhere else. We're all over the place, even on YouTube. Consider following us on Facebook, Twitter, and even consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. We'd appreciate the support. All right, well, let's get into this one. So we're joined this evening by someone who I've met in the podcast sphere, kind of in the podcast community, someone by the name of Trayvon Parker. And you are, and basically the way I remember this is that it seems to me that you're an up-and-coming podcaster who has a business and has a lot of interesting things that you would like to tell my audience about society and everything that's been going on in your life.
Yep.
So basically, start wherever you want to start, but probably I would start, if you want, by introducing yourself and the podcast and kind of, how you got into this mess in the first place,
Definitely. Thank you for that introduction.
My pleasure.
And thank you for having me on your show. That's awesome.
Of course.
Absolutely correct. I am new to the podcasting world. I am a small business owner. Well, I guess that's relative to what your idea of a small business is. I do have a few storefronts, but nevertheless, I am a business owner. And yeah, I've got into podcasting mainly to share my opinion on, to share my viewpoints. I just want to share how a normal person who is my age, I am 24 years old, thinks about certain topics, because I noticed growing up, one thing that I was missing was a conservative voice. I'm conservative. That was younger. Thank God we have more nowadays, but not nearly as many voices as we have for our quote unquote liberal friends.
Sure. As a conservative, I completely agree with you. You're absolutely right. And how did you come to this conclusion? That you're, conservative and that you want to be able to help other conservatives have more of a voice, because I think that really the amount of people who are as conservative as I are few and far between. So I'm very intrigued and quite pleased and quite impressed that you are motivated and willing and ready to talk about this in such an open and supportive and patriotic way. So talk more about it if you want.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I got into politics, after Donald Trump had been elected in 2016, and I did not know much about politics, but I had voted for Hillary, and I wanted to understand how he got elected. So, I really did my research, and I started asking questions. And that was the main thing I want to kind of really put emphasis on. I wanted to ask questions, and I felt like every time I went to go ask a question, we were not allowed to talk about politics, or it was just something that wasn't allowed to be talked. And it made no sense to me. It made no sense why we can't talk about our government. This is our government. This is our country. These are our government officials that we elect. So why can't we talk about it? And why can't we talk about it without all the rage? So that's what really got me into the podcasting world, because I realized that I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it because we should talk about it. If you have an opinion, no matter how crazy it is, talk about it. And whoever is on the receiving end of that opinion, they need to accept the fact that that's what America is about: welcoming and expressing all of these different opinions.
I've been saying the same thing for my entire life. This is exactly how I approach this. This is like that's exactly right, and that's exactly the way that I express the idea. And I think that I'm really quite concerned that our country has gotten to a point where a simple matter of politics has just turned into a complete meltdown for either one.
I like
Um,
what you did there.
so, as a matter of fact, I just remembered as I was saying the word meltdown, I just remembered that you have a particular episode called something about the liberal meltdown or some sort of a meltdown.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about this meltdown?
Yeah. So going back to the story, for a second, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I gotta say, I started to
What
realize.
about me? I'm the one who's crazy enough to host you. You can
Oh yeah,
you
you're
can
right.
you can say what you want. It's me who should be afraid. I should be the one who should be getting nervous right now. But I'm not. I'm not because you know what, guys? This is an episode about politics. So if you don't want to listen to my political views, then go listen to someone else, right? I'm
Yes,
not forcing anyone to listen to this. You know,
correct,
go watch
correct.
something else if you don't want to hear about it. You know.
Um, so I wanted to God, where was I? Sorry about the camera issue, guys.
No worries. No
We
worries.
we had no idea that our external camera wasn't going to be working for this.
Ah, that's very frustrating. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm on a Mac. I'm on an iMac. I would
no
prescribe
wonder
to
it's
you an
gorgeous.
the what?
I said, no wonder it's gorgeous. It's perfect.
So the camera is up here, and yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, there are obviously extensions, and technically speaking, there's a lot more that I could do, but I don't need to. So yeah, I would recommend an iMac, though. They are really good for this type of thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was just playing around with that. But so going back to my earlier point, the what I started to notice was that it was the the more left leaning views that made and the more left leaning people that were who got more emotionally involved in the conversation that kind of led to the reason that I think we're not allowed to talk politics at work anymore. So that's what I started to realize. So that was the first thing. I was like, okay, you guys, I get where we're coming from. I get what we're trying to achieve, but we need to remove the emotion. So I started to do my research. That was the first thing. I didn't like how we can talk about it, but then I realized why we can talk about it, and then did my research on the policies that drove all this emotion. So I did the research and I started formulating my own opinions on them. And because Republicans were more willing, or conservative people were more willing to talk to me, I was able to make more sense of my views. I was able to ask questions and get actual answers in return. And that was nice because they really do have a plan. They really do all share the same I mean same topics, same talking points, so to say. I don't want to say talking points because that sounds bad, but they all have the same. If I ask someone right now, why are you pro-choice? I'm going to get everything under the sun. I just did a video, a podcast on it last night. It came out today, 15 reasons why you should be pro-choice. And I read 15 reasons why. They're all different. And they all make no sense, and they're all emotion-based reasons for the most part. And yeah, that didn't sit well with me. So
Mm, mm.
yeah. Um, I kind of got lost in a rant there. That's what I do. I go on little rants, especially when it comes to politics. But no, yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
Well, I appreciate that. I have noticed now. Made a lot of observations in my life. I'm 29 years old, just a few years older than you, and
Hmm.
I've noticed the same, that especially once I became, I mean, I voted for the first time in 2010. That was my first election that I could participate in, and ever since then, or maybe because I've been paying a lot more attention since, I don't know which, we're dealing with which came first, the chicken or the egg, I don't know, but ever since then, everybody is so emotional about everything. And it's just, the day that Trump was elected back in 16, I heard on Facebook, oh my God, the world is going to come to a crashing end. Oh my God, this is the worst thing in my life. And you know what else is really scary about that? A presidential election really is not the worst thing in your life, regardless of who the president is. There are far worse things than your guy not making it to the White House.
Yeah.
So there are way worse things that can happen just because you don't get your way about an election.
Yeah.
So next great question.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm just so impressed with this level of conservatism and this level of knowledge that you have. I've never spoken to someone who is so young like you and is so like on the right track and so knowledgeable about this. But of course, fundamentally, we have to show both sides of the equation. And on Aaron's opinion, by the way, this is an opinion show. And I'll tell you that I have spoken to some very, very liberal people, some people that probably, if they had known my views before, they probably wouldn't have even come to my show. But for the topic of, since you brought it up, we're going to talk about it, so I'm fine with it. But I am fascinated to know, why did you vote for Clinton in 16? What was the catalyst that really made you vote for her in 16?
I think I know exactly what it was. It was the popularity, the hype around the first woman president. It was the hype around Donald Trump isn't good. Without any knowledge, I came to that conclusion. Without any research, I didn't do one piece of like research before I voted for Hillary. It's so crazy looking back.
Okay,
I
so
just
you
knew.
were, as we say in conservative circles, we would say you were just an uninformed, a low information voter at the
Yep,
time.
correct.
Right, you're a low information voter at the time. Right, I see. Hmm.
100%. Yep. And yeah, that's what, and it really just was because I was so caught up on social media and kids my age and what they were saying about Hillary, and I
Yeah.
just wanted to be a part of the movement, and I
Okay.
was nothing policy wise, nothing.
Right, and I think this is precisely the problem. Is that I think that a lot of the reason why the elections go the way they do is because they're popularity contests. It's not contests of achievement, right? It's not. A lot of this is popularity. And, I'm not sure that truly Trump or Biden are particularly popular people, but I think that there are parts of their personality that attract different types of people, you know. And
And yep,
yes.
you're absolutely correct. And that's another thing that's really frustrating about, I think a lot of Republicans or conservatives have this issue. And I say, Republican conservatives because some people are more
Hmm.
conservative, but not Republican all the time.
And
So,
that's a very, guys, this is a great point. You can be a conservative person and not actually be a member of the Republican Party. In fact, my concern is that I think a lot of people are conservative, but to be put quite directly, are so pissed off at the Republican Party they don't want to be associated with it. So I think we do have a lot of people who genuinely are conservative, but don't affiliate with the party. Yes, go ahead.
that's correct. And the I am so bad at train of thoughts. No, but the point I was trying to make was, what was the point I was trying to, Aaron, I'm so sorry. my train of thought.
Something about popularity and all that.
Yes, yes. So that was it. The popularity thing. I feel like Republicans, when they have to justify why they're voting for Trump, they have to justify his personality. They have to justify all of this. Who I can tell you right now, I could care less about the guy's personality. I actually quite like it. I think it's entertaining. I think it's it's exactly what we need when, you know, politics is so old fashioned, so to say. I think he's made it, you know, hip again. I think he's made it to where younger people are more involved. We have memes about him, and I think that he's actually, it's been good. His personality's been good. And you know, I don't care though when it comes I support him not because he's funny or he's witty or whatever. It's because of his policies. I support, you know, his policies. So I think the popularity thing is another issue. It's not popularity that we should be going. It's not their personalities that we should be basing this off of. It's their policies.
Right, right. So I guess it's kind of hard to phrase the question this way, but if Trump had won the election, which I'm sure you know the truth about that, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say that Trump had won the election.
Mm-hmm.
What policies would you have suggested or would you have wanted him to carry out starting in 2021?
Well, that's a good question. And I think the very first thing that I would have wanted him to do, and I think it's still going to happen without him on this, is getting the social media platforms held to a different standard than they are now, getting them almost classified as publishers, which would make them susceptible to liability for certain things that are on their platform. Because honestly, most of the news that we get, I think almost a majority of the news that we get is from social media now. So that the administration, they've already brought that into court. I mean, it's already undergoing, but that's so important to our democracy right now, is taking care of social media and these big tech platforms, because it is, look at what's happened, look what it's done. It's put us at if the Democratic Party did not have so much power, we would not be at such a stand still with America and media. I feel like it's so bad right now, and it's because the media has so much power behind it. And I think that's largely due to the Democratic Party and big tech.
Well, I mean, on big tech, I think that, it goes both ways. I think there are times where big tech certainly censors things. And then there are other times where, where we need to kind of realize that that's kind of the nature of social media. So I'm certainly not defending the censorship at all, but I think that might be kind of part of the social system and social media, to today. And I don't really see any way around that. We can have court cases all we want, but people are going to use, social media however they damn please. And it's not like they're going to just stop using or stop posting or stop tweeting or stop posting videos on YouTube like we do, right? I'm not stopping this podcast just because someone else doesn't like what I say. So why should I be upset when someone else, I don't know, posts something from CNN or a liberal blog or someone that I don't like? Well, if I don't like something, I'm just going to go about my business. But it's not, I guess this is a point where I'm not, I guess now that I'm kind of having the conversation about it, I guess I'm kind of not fully on board with this particular notion of taking the tech companies to court, because in my opinion and my ruling is that it's just not going to a greater extent, it's not going to work really in the long term, and people are going to be people regardless of this type of thing. Yes.
I think you're right on that aspect. I think you're 100% right on that aspect. I don't even think they should have even I didn't even want it to come this far. I don't even think they should have been called into court until they started censoring conservative
Okay. Well,
views.
so the issue, okay, so it's not about the fact that you want them to be called into court. It's the fact that you want to address the issue of censorship of the of the right.
Correct. If you want to have a social media platform free to talk about whatever, no strings attached, fine. I'm all for that. But having a platform that you can say whatever as long as it doesn't, as long as it doesn't lean conservative, that is where I think that no, if you want to start monitoring political viewpoints and selecting which ones are noticed and which ones get put out there, you are acting as a publisher. Leave it alone, or do the whole thing, or do it all the way through.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I think the legal issue. My last guest just a couple hours ago is a lawyer, and I know that you're going to subscribe to this podcast. So when I put that episode out, I know you're going to play it, and watch it on YouTube or play it on iTunes wherever you get it. But this is where you're 100% correct too, by the way. But this is where we start to kind of lose the traction as conservatives, because it's very, very, very difficult to get lawyers to defend these types of things. And in the end, the social media giants are going to have more money, so they're going to end up winning the argument regardless. I mean, I'm certainly not throwing out the idea. I get it, and I'm totally in agreement. But I'm just telling you, let me disappoint you ahead of time. They clearly won't stop censoring. It's overly clear that the courts are going to, for the most part, side with the tech giants, and that conservatives need to, in my opinion, need to stop complaining about this one issue, and we need to find our own ways of communicating amongst ourselves. Fine. They want a country with two political parties. Well, you'll get it. They'll get their own party. They can do what they want, and we'll do what we want. And
Yep.
that's kind of my ruling on that. I guess I don't really support this whole notion. I mean, it's kind of a toss up. It's like on one hand, yeah, it's wrong, but from a legal standpoint, yeah, it's right, because that's how the legal system works. The person with more money wins the argument. So
And
yeah, it's a big problem. Yeah.
and so you asked what would be one of the first policies I would want tackled. That would be it. And it needs to be. And like I said, I wouldn't care if it didn't interfere with our democracy, because look what it has done. It has interfered with our democracy so bad that we don't even know who is president of the United States. So
It's a really strong argument. It's a brilliant argument. Yeah.
and I think, yeah. So that's what I truly believe that.
Sure.
And
Sure.
and I do think we do, as conservatives, need to get more just more. We need to make it more mainstream to be a conservative, because right now it is not.
Well, actually, I think the fact that I think what's really going on is that our country is starting to catch the corruption disease that is caught all over the world by other countries. Actually, in essence, look at the look at the numbers, Trayvon. I think a lot of people supposedly voted for Trump. Supposedly 70 million of them.
72 million.
There we go. 70, 72, 72. There we go. But by the time we got to the podcast, what you pulled up the chart before you came on to add in the 2 million, you're already at votes.
Oh, I did a podcast earlier this morning on.
So yes, you did look at the chart before you came in.
Yes.
So look, that's a big number. 72 million people support
Big
Trump.
number.
Okay. Or that also means, by the way, just because 72 million people voted for Trump, that doesn't mean all of them actually agree with Trump. Perhaps some of that.
No, you know what it means though? You know what it means though? It means that, first of all, for the first time in history, for the first time in history that this is the largest number of people
That's
that
right.
has ever voted for Republican, first and foremost. So,
Mm-hmm.
but what it tells us is 72 million people have a conservative mindset. Right now, they do not recognize America, or they fear they will not recognize America. So they are retreating to their conservative views, which is what we do. After 9/11, what did we do? We went back to our conservative roots. That's what we do when we don't recognize or we're scared. So I think that's what I see. I see 72 million people who want to recognize their country again.
Yeah, yeah. It's a brilliant point. Absolutely perfectly stated. But also at the same time, I'm telling you, I'm cautioning you slightly here because 72 million, what I'm saying is some of those people might have voted for Trump just because they don't like Biden or just because they think
Which
Biden
means they
isn't going to
just have
work.
conservative, in my opinion, which just means
Right.
they don't agree with Biden's policies. I
It
mean, if you
could,
don't,
it could. Yeah.
they're voting against him personally because they don't. I mean, fine, but majority of those
Right.
people,
Yes. Yes.
I believe, are
You're right. You're right. And I would hope you are correct. I'm just
yeah,
alerting you to the fact that just to be completely transparent, just because someone votes for a politician, it doesn't mean that they actually like the politician.
correct,
There can be many reasons why you vote for someone, and oftentimes it can just as often be that you don't like the other guy or you dislike the other guy even worse than the guy you dislike. So I think that's a problem too. That's a problem all in itself. But yes,
that's
definitely.
correct,
Hmm.
100%.
So, I gotta ask, have you, I mean, your analysis of everything is just spot on, absolute brilliance. Have you thought about, you know, creating some sort of a, conservative kind of talk show podcast type of thing? Why don't you talk more about this meltdown thing that you're getting
Yes,
going?
so I was actually going to talk about that earlier. So
Oh, sorry.
the Liberal Meltdown is actually a podcast show. It's called the Liberal Meltdown Show. And it is my podcast where I can go and just kind of get out how I view a policy, a situation, a politician, or anything. I think the first two episodes I spoke about the abolishing the electoral college and why I think it's not a good idea, not yet, not without something better than a popularity contest. And I
Yes, yes, exactly.
and I kind of dive into that.
You understand things perfectly. This is the type of person that I had wished, is as creepy as this sounds. This is incredibly creepy. But this is the type of person that I wish that I had actually met, growing up, going through university, facing the discrimination that I've faced for my disability. You're kind of the type of person that I wish I had known then,
That's awesome, and that's
because if
exactly why I'm
because
doing this.
because the fact that, well then you're very kind, and you're going to be in a very good place in the podcast community, at least in my heart as a podcaster. But then then we have a lot of serious problems. So okay, so what, as far as the electoral college goes, actually, well, we need to keep it, but there's bigger problems, is what I'm saying. There are bigger problems than that. What do you suggest then?
For the electoral college,
Or the perhaps the disabling or getting rid of the electoral college? How would you rather it be done?
well, the first thing I think that needs to be acknowledged is why do we want to abolish the electoral college?
Right, now,
What
now
prompted
tell me,
this?
please tell me, because actually I don't personally, I don't necessarily want to abolish the electoral college. So tell me, why should I want to abolish the electoral college?
So I think when that was the first thing I think that we needed to understand, and I think what I'm getting, what I think that the movement started for is because they believe the popular vote. They believe it should be based, our president at least should be picked based on popularity on majority of the country, and they use a quote: minority rule, majority rule, or majority rule, minority rights. I think that's the quote. I think that's
Right.
it perfectly. And what they're getting at is basically it needs to be based off of popular opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't find any other reason of why they would want to abolish the Electoral College. I haven't heard any other reasons, and other than it's unfair. And what I say to that is, why do we have the Electoral College to begin with? And why didn't the founders just go with a popularity contest to begin with? And I think everyone acknowledges the fact that, okay, well, it was a different time. It was 300 years ago almost. It was a different time. Things have changed. Okay, fine. What has changed? One of the main reasons that we had an Electoral College was because 300 years ago, they had no idea. Regular people had no idea what was going on in Washington. They had no idea who was being considered.
Outstanding response. I gotta interject here. Have you spoken to conservative leaders in our country? I mean, have you talked to like people who are maybe like on the radio that are really famous before? Because
I
you
have
should.
never. No. This
Do
is
you
my.
know do you know who I'm talking about though?
I know of the conservative voices that are out there. Yes.
Like who, what personalities have you heard of so far?
I think I've just about heard of them all. Everything from Jordan Peterson to Ben Shapiro to Michael Knowles to I think I've heard them all. Honestly, there could be I've honestly, and I love historians too. You know, um, I love people who study the Constitution. So I love people who are in the educational field as well, who maybe aren't so popular in the mainstream media too. So yeah.
Well, and I think that they created the Electoral College because they never wanted any one state to become too powerful. I show my students I'm a teacher when I'm not a podcaster. Right back there behind me, guys, you guys can sort of see the map there. And I point to certain states and I say each state is worth a certain number of points because really each state has a different population. So my concern is that if they did abolish the electoral college, then wherever most of the people live, that's what would dictate the future politics of the country. So then you would have a situation where California and New York would have more influence than Wyoming and Alaska, right?
Correct. And
So
that, yeah,
we can't really allow that either because that's not right to the people who live in Wyoming.
that's correct. And that is the one, and that's the reason I'm sticking with the Electoral College, because that is the one reason today that still matters. Because there are 39 million people in California. There's no way any other state outside of it's going to compete with that voice. So that is still an issue that needs to be addressed. So until someone can give me a reason or something better that is going to represent fairly the people of Wyoming, I can't just abolish it yet. And you know, I think it was, and then just to listen to how they talk about it. If you listen to my podcast that I did, I have inserts of how they talk about it. These news anchors, these are people on daytime TV saying things like our electoral college, which was created by wealthy white slave owners. You know, it's like this was such a articulate what they have done and created here is so unique, and it has served us so well. And then you go on TV and you say our founders are a bunch of white racist slave owners who created something and rushed it in the back of a closet, just show some more respect for your country, your constitution, your founders.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's exactly right. But unfortunately, we live in a country with incredibly disrespectful people who just don't just don't get it for many different reasons.
And I get it. It's very complex. Thomas Jefferson had, he won because of slaves. The slaves were allowed to vote in the South. Therefore, that allowed him to win. And this is so complex. So back in the day, it's not like we had people who were against slavery and then, these slave owners, and we should just look at the people who didn't believe in slavery, because that's not a reality. You're never going to
Right.
find these people. So I think it's very complex, and that's why we need to remove emotion out of it and stop giving our founders labels like white and racist and slave owners, and just talk about what's really happening right now.
And what do you make of what really is happening right now?
Well, what I think is happening right now is too much identity politics. I think that it's just gotten you no longer, the fact that I'm black and I'm a conservative, or half black and a conservative, is I get so many just negative comments about it, and it's just so bad that we've associated skin color with a political party, when the Republican Party was founded on abolishing slavery. I don't, so it's not, you can't do identity politics, and it's never going to work.
Yeah, but apparently it does. I mean, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying apparently it does work because that's what some people do. See, some of these people live their whole lives around that whole notion of identity politics, and
Yep.
it works. It works for them. So
It does.
apparently it does work, or else they wouldn't be doing it. So it works. We happen to disagree, but it does work for them. Hmm.
That's right, which is why, I'm just happy that, I am just another voice in the conservative, world, that people can, that contradicts that. Um, I'm glad that I get to do this, and people can hear that, okay, you know, you can be a conservative and not, you can be a conservative. It's almost a bad word these days. I actually had to lie to someone the other day and tell them I wasn't, because it was a professional scene, and I needed the client, and it was a big thing, and no way was I going to say that I was. It's so crazy how, and even now I'm working on that, because I don't like that.
Yeah, well, if they but what if they listen to this episode, then they'll know the truth.
Yeah, and now I'm getting to a point where I really don't care. um
Yeah.
I really am. I think we need to start making it to where we can talk about politics and why we support things without people thinking that we're racist and we're black. I've actually seen people call black people racist before because they support a conservative. It's the wildest thing.
It's very strange and very concerning. And a point that I made last night, I had someone else from our side of the story, our side of the aisle, and she was having a conversation with me about these very similar topics. And I think it's all very strange, especially the fact that everything we're doing now when we vote, it affects the younger generation that are not old enough to vote now. So every vote counts, and every vote will affect people who are not able to vote. So,
That's right.
it
That's
is
absolutely right.
it is critical that we fix this matter.
And I think,
Um, yeah.
what I know how we can fix it. Honestly, I think what we should do. It's very crazy, but it's a start. Is in the right step to thinking that way. Is you need to have a college education to vote. Maybe
Well, no, that's really
because
bad. No, 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 nope, 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 nope. We don't want that. No,
well,
but no,
maybe
the
if they
problem.
make
Come on,
college
come on.
free, then
Yeah.
they should consider that.
No, that's really bad because most people in the colleges are liberal. So then we'd have even more liberal voters.
You're right. You're right. And you're right. I just
That would make it really bad.
for me though, I did not get the correct education until I got to college. For some reason, maybe we just need to reform the education in high school then. My point
Well,
is
that's
just
a lot.
getting
That's a lost
correct.
cause. That's a lost cause.
My point is just getting correct education out there. Um, I think that's the most important thing.
Right.
Getting correct education will start to change how people think and vote. I think once people actually understand how the Constitution works, they're going to think twice before they start shouting, abolish the Electoral College.
Right. 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 And so, what are some other things that you hope to do with your podcast?
So, aside from politics, I do own a company called Lifestyle Studios, and it is a talent agency. So, my goal is to start in my community, and my goal is to try and get young adults, kids, teenagers to realize or to discover their inner talent, whatever that is, to help them find it, and then help them move on it, help them do something with it, whether it be go into a profession with it or try and make it in the big world or whatever. Just get our kids a little bit more into actual recreational activities versus social media and all this other stuff that our kids are now, because where I come from, Spokane, Washington, the streets are so bad with just young people, and we have homeless just everywhere, and they're all so young. And I'm thinking, it was very easy. I see how easy it is to end up there because I moved here from Florida at a very young age, all by myself, and I was offered. It was easy. It was easy. I could see how easy it was. But I chose to focus on my inner talents, which was dancing. I was a ballroom dancer. And that's what I wanted to do, was open a ballroom dance studio until I decided I wanted to help more people. So I came up with Lifestyle Studios. But I resorted to my talents when I got bored or when I didn't have a friend. I didn't resort to drugs or drinking, and that's what I want Lifestyle Studios to be, is a place where kids don't feel like they're walking into a cliche YMCA or community center. They're walking into almost a campus like high school musical moment where they can discover their talents, whether it be podcasting, YouTubing, dancing, singing, whatever it is. I want to just get them, water that seed.
Right. Well, I support that idea,
Thank you.
and I completely want to help you with that. That is such a good activity, and it's so good of you to do that. It's so good. So, have you met any young podcasters who have mentioned that they want to be a podcaster?
So I am so new to the podcast world.
That's
It's
true.
ridiculous. Maybe like not even 2 weeks. I just started my podcast and it was on a whim. I just got so riled up on Facebook. I'm like, no, enough of this. I'm going live.
I see. I
So,
see.
I haven't yet, but I always knew podcasting existed. I did work it into the program catalog. I do know it's going to be a part of the company for sure.
Hmm. Well, that's real. I'm really proud of you. I'm really glad to hear that. And off the air, when I stop the recording, I have something else I want to tell you about that. But that is absolutely that is absolutely the right thing to do. You're just a person who just does the right thing. I mean, I don't know you, but I know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it, this is
and that it's so funny you say that. That's the first time I've actually heard that. That's the first time I heard that. And the reason I'm making such a big deal about it is because at the start of 2020, that was my New Year's resolution. I said, you know what? I just want to do the right thing from now on. I don't want to, no matter what job I get, I don't want to get a job for the money. So I quit my job. I did. I quit it. I quit a beautiful job, full time, 55 hours a week, making great money. And I quit it because I wasn't happy. And I said, the next job I get, I will be happy, and I will do something that will better our community. Because I know one day I will run for office. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know if it'll be mayor, but I know public service is something on my list. Maybe a little further down my list right now because I think I can do more in the private sector. But I do know I told myself this year, no matter what I do moving forward, everything I do will be to better my community in this world. So thank you, because that means I'm doing what I set out to do.
And this is why I created Aaron's Opinion. It's so funny. It's so magical that when we create these podcasts and channels, I set out to just do exactly what you're doing. Just do the right thing and try to help only one person. Because the magic in life that I'm sure if you only help one, you will definitely help a million others.
Yes.
And I completely believe it. I've seen it. It does work. So don't worry about how many people you talk to. Just worry about one episode at a time. Would you believe it if I told you that yesterday on this very podcast, I spoke to an actress from Hollywood?
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
What was yesterday's podcast about?
I'll give it up. Please send me a reminder note in Messenger. I'll give it to you.
Yes.
The reason I'm telling you is secretly, did I think that she would actually come and talk to me? No. Was I a tiny bit nervous as we were getting into it? Yeah. But I'm really glad I did. Because today, this person, she sent me a message telling me how much she enjoyed the interview. And then she subscribed to me on YouTube. Now that's pretty good.
That's awesome.
That shows that this does work when you do it for the right reason.
Mm-hmm.
So remember that whatever you do, whether it's trying to convince other young people to be conservative, don't worry. Please don't try, because trust me, it's a lost cause. Trust me, but you can try. And I think you're a wonderful teacher. I think you're an amazing person to have in this community. Guys, I never knew you. I never knew who you were. I didn't know that you would be this good. If I had known, I don't know if I had known you would be this good. I don't know what I would have done differently.
That's awesome. Good. I'm glad I exceeded expectations.
But it's like when you talk to people and it's like, well, that was a good boy. That was a good interview. I'm gonna have to get popcorn and open up a Blue Moon with that one. I mean, that's that type of interview.
Thank you.
Wow, baby, is that a good interview? And next question, while you're so pleased, so when are you gonna have Aaron's Opinion on your podcast? Because I love guesting. Guesting on someone else's is so much. Guesting on someone else's is so much fun because I can say whatever I want, and I can really open up even further on someone else's show. It's not my problem if it's your show.
I love that. And and honestly, I haven't even had one guest on. I've been looking. It's hard to get.
I'm your first. Yes.
So I would love it.
Come on. Okay, stop.
I know you're not a liberal though, but But you know what? I even
Wait a
thought
minute.
conversation.
You are not. Let me just try to rescue you. Okay. Let me try to help you out here, Matt. Let me try to prescribe something. Okay. The liberals are not going to talk to you. Once they see this episode, they will never talk to you again. It's nothing personal. Okay. Trust me, your life as a conservative that no one knew about, your life is at this point your life of obscurity and everything has just zip, just evaporated. Okay. So trust me, they're never going to come onto your show now.
I know.
And but you know what? That's fine. You know, I don't do grudges. I don't hold anything against people like that. Fine, you don't want to talk to me, fine. I'm not going to make you. So we just need to go about our business. And you're right, there are very serious issues that need to be corrected. The first of which is that more people need to get into podcasting so they can educate other people. That's the first thing that needs to happen.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, I've really hammered you today. I mean,
Yeah.
you've really, you're a great podcaster.
Oh, really? This is literally first time I've ever been in front of a mic, really. This is my third episode.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have thought you're just as, I would have, I would have thought you're just as famous as me. Which the joke there is, I'm not famous, by the way. Um, I've gotten lucky with a couple of my guests, and the other thing is you have to learn how to reach out to people. That's a skill. It's tricky, and sometimes they do say no, but more often than no, they usually agree to it. They usually say yes.
I've started to, yeah.
Yeah. You've started to, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I started to notice that, yeah, it's a really kind community, and they do say yes more so than you would think.
Yeah, they definitely do. More than yes. And if the answer is no, they usually do circle back to you in the end. A couple of weeks down the line, you know, if they're too busy, they usually do come back. Sometimes not, but they usually do. Oftentimes, yes.
But I'd love to have you on as my next guest.
Well, it would be your first guest.
My first guest. Oh my God, yes. Oh my God.
You can't. You see, it's not quite next if you've never had one.
You're absolutely right.
So, guys, I mean, I've asked you a lot of questions.
You have.
I've really put you through the meat grinder on this one. I mean, so now it's your turn. If you can only ask me one question to really make me sweat, what do you want to ask?
Oh,
really,
okay.
Come on, man. Really,
okay,
really.
Do you want it to be a political one?
Any question. Any.
About
any topic under the sun.
Any topic under the sun. Okay. How do you feel about euthanasia? So basically, legal suicide.
For people?
Yeah, people.
That's a really good question. I've never given it much thought. But actually I have. My opinion is that I think we need laws about it. And I think that every state deserves to have their own laws about it. I think that there is a enormous difference from tragically taking your own life at the age of 25 as opposed to being 95 years old and being terminally ill and you're in pain every day. You know, I think there's a huge difference about that. So my opinion of it is that I don't really know, but I think if you are super old and you're suffering every second and you've lived your life and you've just had enough, I don't really know, but I would say there are worse ways to go, and I would say if the person truly wants it, then to some degree, you know. Did you watch the documentary about this?
I don't.
There was one. Now I'm gonna tell you something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give you if you remind me, because I have a lot of students, a lot of podcasting. I have such, you know, I'm blessed with such a great group of students and podcasters that I do lose track of things. So please remind me if you want it. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. You are going to see an old man actually take the medicine in the video and actually die on the video. So if you really want to see that, yeah, it's a very interesting concept. And my opinion of it is that if you're that old and that sick and you have done everything you want to do in life, and you know you decide for yourself, okay, you know what, enough, give me the juice, you know, that's one thing. but there's a lot to it, and it's very complicated, and of course will always be controversial.
Of course.
And then you have issues with, well, what if they were pressured, and what if there was other issues? Well, you know what, that's more for other types of. Would you mind if I ask
Good
what
response. Keep going. Yeah.
would you mind if I ask what brought that up in your mind as such a young person? Not trying to creep you out, but what made you think of that all of a sudden?
No, so I like that question because it shows the complexity of how a person thinks, how deep a person can
Yeah,
think.
really, your ability to synthesize information is really on point. But no, okay, now stop dodging the question though. So do you know, maybe did you have a family member who maybe got sick and
Um,
died and you felt bad about it, or that kind of brought it up in your mind? You kind of thought, well, maybe if she had only had the chance to end her life before she suffered all the way, it would have been better. Maybe did you think of that at one point?
well, no, actually, it was actually the most recent topic that I had just kind of changed my mind about. It was actually the most recent topic that I just formulated a new opinion on, and it was a new topic that's going to be added to the podcast. So I thought I'd throw it out there and get a little bit more information on it
Well,
while I had you.
who are you gonna talk to about this topic though?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I haven't even had my first guest, let alone.
That's true. I would. I don't know how I would talk about that.
I think I would like to get a doctor on because what I'm interested in is the moral implications of it.
Right. Well, I think that is truly a fascinating. That would be an absolutely fascinating entry for sure. Um, I am I am starting to run out of time here on this
No,
on
that's
this
fine.
recording. Um, I think this has been a fascinating listen.
Very robust.
So don't hang up. Let me tell you something else. But for right now, let's just say, whoa, you've been listening to Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. That was an action-packed one. Boy, we got the past 48 hours, you get an actress from Hollywood and then a conservative young person from Spokane, and then what? I don't know. Let's strap ourselves in, I guess. Well, that one I enjoy recording every episode. I really do. And this one I tremendously enjoyed. Keep up your great work. Keep
Thank you.
educating people and keep loving America, because God bless America, right?
Yes, God bless America. Thank you, Aaron.
You are forever welcome. And I have a very famous slogan, or at least it's a slogan that I think is famous because I think it's famous. Do you know what my slogan is that I sign off with?
Oh, I do know it. I have heard it, and you said it earlier today in the show, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Do you remember?
Oh, I know. I don't want to get it
Uh,
wrong.
well, let me get it right. Help one
One
person
person
today,
today.
help a million people tomorrow.